Hello, Karin Svensson from Volvo Group, your Chief Sustainability Officer. So how has your COP been so far?
It's been great. We're only here for a couple of days, so it's quite intensive. But we are really focusing on meeting as many people as possible, different types of stakeholders, and on the dialogue.
Speaking of dialogue, what partnerships are the most important for Volvo to build on in this transition to a greener future?
There are some different types of partnerships. I think one is, of course, in the supply chain with our suppliers and partners upstream in the value chain. But also very much we're focusing on partnerships on creating the prerequisites for this transition, for example, building charging infrastructure or around renewable energy.
So you have a very complex value chain, of course, being in the business you're in. So how do you go about transforming it, and what needs to happen in the short term?
Yeah, it is quite complex, both from a customer perspective and point of view, but also more on the upstream. So if we start by focusing a little bit on the upstream part, so we have approximately 50,000 tier one suppliers, and of course 50,000, yeah. So of course, if we are to decarbonize, they also need to decarbonize. So we are trying to work. We're starting with the materials and components that have the biggest impact from a CO2 perspective. So we're starting with steel, with polymers, with electronics, batteries, aluminium, those things. And there we are trying to form partnerships together with some of the big suppliers, like for example SSAB, where we have had partnerships around fossil-free steel for quite some time, which has actually resulted in us being able to, today when we sell an electric truck, for example, we have fossil-free steels or parts of it being made in fossil-free steel. But of course we want to continue throughout the whole supply chain and decarbonize, and that is quite a tough job and requires lots of very close cooperation.
And in this way, you're also, for instance, with SSAB, you're also pushing the industry to produce steel. I mean, if they didn't have any big companies buying their steel, they wouldn't produce it, right?
No.
So it goes both ways.
Yes, and in that sense, I think what we're doing right now is that we are using our purchasing power to say, hey, we are prepared to commit to buying a certain level of fossil-free steel at a certain point. And actually, right now, we are buying more or less as much as we can find. So that's also helping the industry to transform.
Indeed it is. So speaking of pressure, where does the pressure come from? Is it the customers? Is it the policymakers or the NGOs? Who's putting the most pressure on, and maybe where do you need more pressure?
Yeah.
If you do.
Yeah. I think from a customer point of view, we do see some pressure or opportunity. A lot of our customers have also committed to become net zero, and of course in their value chain most of their emissions very often come from transportation. So for us it's of course a great opportunity to help our customers to decarbonize. We also see some pressure from our customer's customer that put pressure on their side then to decarbonize. Then of course from a regulatory point of view, especially in the EU, we see quite strict regulations coming up to decarbonize that will support us in this decarbonization journey. From the investor side, we also see a great interest in this decarbonization journey, as I think we all can agree that that's really the only way forward, as we need to continue to transport both goods and people.
So Karin, you're here at the COP. It's a finance COP. Of course, finance is crucial to make this happen. But what are your hopes for the COP from the Volvo perspective?
I think this is of course about negotiations, and we're not really involved in the actual negotiations, and hopefully they will come to great ambition levels. But I think what our role as the private sector, that is really to implement whatever is being agreed. So I think my hope is that they will listen to the industry and the private sector, as we have lots of we know what is needed to be done, and we also actually have quite some experiences already today that we can share about how to implement and how to go about this transformation.
Just one final question here about your Scope 3, because I mean, many of your products have combustion engines, of course. That is the case here. So, how do you see about the transition here? What is the perspective? Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of viewers might be curious to that question,
Yeah.
to the answer to that question. Yeah.
Certainly. So we have what we call a three-pronged approach. So we believe in that the future will have to be consisting of battery electric vehicles, fuel cell electric vehicles, and still the internal combustion engine. But then it has to be filled with something else than diesel. So it could be hydrogen, e-fuels, biofuels. So we think that there is actually room for all solutions. Because we are today present in 190 markets, we are present in many different types of transport segments, and there will not be one silver bullet that could solve
Not one
all
size
of that.
fits all.
No, exactly.
So, Karin, best of luck here. And I mean, there will be, I'm sure there are some type of negotiations for you to contacts to be made, etc., etc. And let's hope that this will be a good COP for Volvo and good COP for the world, indeed.
Definitely.
So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.